All Things Mavs.
Mavs fans, what's going on? You're tuned into the All Things Mavs podcast. I'm your host, as always, Jimmy Crowther, breaking down all the things going on with the Dallas Mavericks. And here today, live in the Chat Sports Studios in downtown Dallas, I'm here with my friend. You heard him last week, Harrison Graham. Harrison Graham, welcome to the podcast.
What's good, man? About 6 minutes left in the final bubble game. We wanted to just go ahead and get a head start. This game's irrelevant. Mavs are down like 20 right now. Looking ahead to the playoffs, 3 and 5 in the 8 bubble games. Let's break it down a bit.
Yeah, so full disclosure, we got 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's pretty clear what's going to happen in this game as the Mavericks, they started their normal starters minus Kristaps Porzingis, who sat out with, quote, a bruised heel. We all know that was just load management on that one. So their starters today were Tim Hardaway Jr., Luka Doncic, Seth Curry, Boban, and Dorian Finney-Smith. Nobody besides Boban really played in the second half. It is a blowout as we're recording this. Boban, though, looks great. He's got 16 and 15.
And that's interesting, right? Because the Clippers have a lot of size, so maybe he plays some in that series. I will say in 13 minutes, how about 18 points and 5 assists on 5 for 9 from Luka, 7 for 7 from the line. Much better from the free throw line as of late, which is a positive sign as well.
Much better from the free throw line, but 5 rebounds. He didn't have an assist in today's game, which is going to hurt his averages. And I was like, man, shouldn't have played. But it is what it is, and we got some good minutes from Boban. So we're not going to focus so much on this game. We'll talk about here in just a second about the Suns' playoff implications and what it means for them. But in all reality, what we want to focus on is what we liked in the bubble, what we didn't like in the bubble, and what to look for in this playoff matchup against the Los Angeles Clippers, because it's locked in now. It's the Mavs at 7, it's the Clippers at 2, and I'm going to go ahead and let you guys in on a little secret. I'm going to be doing some more video-style things with the playoff previews and what's going to happen in the playoffs, and not so much just audio, so you guys get to see my pretty face. And so what I'm going to do here is do this last post-game podcast audio style, and then we're going to kick it right to video. But I want to break down the bubble and do it all with Harrison Graham. All right, now, let's talk about it. Mavs get the Clippers in the first round. So what I'm going to do, and make this the pinned comment on today's video, all you got to do is scroll down and respond. How many games do you think that series is going to go against the Los Angeles Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks? Harrison, off the top of your head, first, that's where we'll start. Predictions.
I'm not going to be that guy. It's like, oh, they're going to get swept. I mean, we talked about this in the office. They haven't lost 3 games in a row all year. Dallas hasn't. I don't believe even this is. Hey, if you want to be ultimate spin zone guy, they will be riding a 2-game losing streak into game 1 of the series. They haven't lost 3 in a row all year. Mavs taking game 1? I'm just saying. I think I'll be ultra optimistic and go 6 games.
Okay.
I think the Mavs are capable of winning 2 games. Obviously, you look at the 3 matchups this year, outside of the middle one, although the last one was a lot more competitive than the final score of 126-111, but we were texting. I think it was like Kleba ties it at 101 with 6 and some change. We're like, okay, it's a good test, and then, Kawhi went Kawhi, PG went PG, and, that's how it goes sometimes. Those guys have been around. But I'll say 6 games. We'll break it down a little bit more here, but I don't think it's a sweep. I don't think the Mavs get it to 7. So I think it's 5 or 6. I'll say 6.
Okay, I like that, and I think a lot of people would agree with you in that. I mean, I'm obviously hoping, I'd love to get 7 games out of this. I really think there's a chance it goes 7. I would love to be able to say the Mavs are going to pull this out. I don't think it's going to happen. I've said it from the beginning. I made a video on it still, earlier in the summer when I was just saying the worst possible matchup for this Mavs team is the Los Angeles Clippers, because they don't have the wings to go up against Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. And you just see those guys can beat you in so many different ways. And obviously, we get to see some Michael Kidd-Gilchrist now is playing a little bit better and a little bit more, and that's going to help. But I'm not going to say Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is going to be a game changer in this series.
And the problem there is like, even let's just say he is your best matchup defender guy against them, which could be true. It's him or Dorian, obviously. You just can't play him extended minutes because he's such a hole offensively. Yep. And we know that the Mavs are going to have to score points to keep up with anybody because they're just not good enough defensively. Even if you want to get slightly better defensive play, if MKG's on the floor, you're getting worse offensive play because you don't have to guard them if you're the other team. So it collapses, you can double Luka, stuff like that. And, just to kind of rip off your point too, you say they don't have the wings to guard the Clippers. how about the flip side of it, too? Yeah, Luka's going to get his against everybody, but out of every team in the NBA, he has to work the hardest against the Clippers. I will stand by that. In all 3 games this year, every basket he got, it was earned because they can throw Kawhi at him. They can throw Paul George at him. Marcus Morris can guard him in a bench, or in a pitch. Yeah. In a
Pat
pinch.
Bev.
Pat Beverly is a guy that can mix it. They can switch on screens with some of their guys because they're versatile. I mean, it's a tough matchup for Luka Doncic. So, we'll see. The Mavs are going to be able to score. Can they get enough stops? Can Luka be efficient enough? Those are kind of the couple of things I'm looking at here.
So we talk about Luka and how he has to work so hard. I think you hit the nail on the head with that point, and I 100% agree with you. It's going to be a grind for him, and I'm sure he's going to get bogged down, but he's going to get tired. So you look at the other side of that duo, and Kristaps Porzingis in this. And Kristaps Porzingis has been amazing in the bubble. Doesn't play against the Phoenix Suns, putting up over, I believe, 25 points per game, basically averaging a double-double. He's gotten his season average up to 20 points and 10 rebounds for the year. And you look at who the bigs are for the Los Angeles Clippers. They've got Zubac, who obviously killed the Mavs, but offensively or defensively, he can't keep up with Porzingis. He's not fast enough. Montrezl Harrell, a great offensive big man, a great rebounder. Historically, not a good defender.
Yep.
You've got Marcus Morris. He's more of a small forward, defensively. They'll play him at power forward now, and I'm sure he'll get some minutes on Porzingis, but he's got to be the X factor, right, in this series?
Look, we saw this 4 days ago whenever these two teams played. They should have fed Porzingis more. 9 for 19 in that game, 30 points. Honestly, missed out of those 10 misses out of 19 shots there. 4 or 5 of those are shots he normally makes. Like, they could not guard him in this game. You mentioned, Zubac was a problem for the Mavs, but his defense on Porzingis was not the problem. It was the fact that he went 10 for 10 and had 21 points and 15 boards. They don't have a guy that can guard Porzingis. Now, not a lot of teams do, but really in this matchup, to your point, while they've got a slew of guys who can at least challenge Luka, they don't really have that guy who can challenge Porzingis. So if the Mavs are going to A, somehow win the series, or B, even really just be competitive over 5, 6, 7 games, KP's probably got to be a 30-point guy in this series, realistically. 30 points, 12 rebounds. He's got to be really, really good, and he has to be featured if you're Rick Carlisle. So it'll be fascinating to see, especially this first couple of games, how many touches is he getting, those type of things. Are they working him early? They give him the off day today, which, he'll be plenty fresh. So I'm excited to see how Rick mixes and matches because we haven't seen playoff Rick in a while. Yeah. We know, he can turn it on in a playoff series. So we'll see how that goes.
And, man, the closest we've ever gotten to playoff Luka is what he did with Real Madrid and carried them to a EuroLeague championship. Yeah. Now, it's not the same level of play. I'm not going to equate that at all. But that was 4 or 5 years ago.
That's not
he was a teenager.
Yeah, and that's not nothing, though. I mean, the second best league in the world, won the MVP, all that stuff. So he won't be overwhelmed by this moment. I really don't think this team will in general. It's more of just the Clippers. They just have guys who they've done it, man. Kawhi's the defending champ, right? Defending Finals MVP. Doc Rivers is a championship coach as well. So it's interesting. This is the team you wanted to avoid. But, hey, you got to embrace the challenge, right? You got to say, hey, we're going to go in there and we're going to take every cut and we're going to make it as tough on the Clippers as we can. And I promise you, it's not like the Clippers are sleeping at night having to worry about Luka and KP. Yeah. They'd much rather play, in my opinion, Utah. So, the Mavs are going to go in swinging and see how it goes.
All right, so let me ask you this before we're going to go to one more ad break after I ask you this and bring this question up, and then we'll kind of break down the bubble as a whole.
Okay.
If the Mavs win this series, I know it's early, we haven't even seen Game 1 yet. Game 1's probably Monday. That's TBD, but we're going to assume it's Monday.
Which you'll have a full video.
We'll have a full video preview coming on.
Check out the channel.
Coming early next week. So make sure you subscribe to All Things Mavs. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Subscribe. I'm going to ask you this. This is going to be a big question.
If they win,
they've got a pretty good path of going all the way to the Western Conference Finals at that point.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the flip side of it all, right? when you always look at the playoffs, right? You look at this on the surface. You want to avoid the Lakers and the Clippers early. Well, on the flip side, if you catch them in the first round and somehow you win, then you've beaten the toughest team in front of you. So, I mean, yeah, sure, of course. I mean, if they were to win this series, I've said all along, outside of the Clippers, they can play with anybody.
Yep.
Now, I wouldn't pick them to beat the Lakers per se, maybe not even the Nuggets, but if they beat them, it wouldn't surprise me. They match up well with the Lakers. We saw that this year in the games they played. They didn't always win. They won the one game easily on the road, and Staples got screwed the other time. I
Freaking
know.
Seth Curry, Dwight Howard,
on the pulled pick or whatever that was. But they can play with any team in the West. Not saying they can't play with the Clippers, but the evidence tells us that it's a bad matchup for Dallas.
It's tough. So we're going to take one last ad break. So go get a snack, go get a drink of water. Go ahead and reply in the comment section what you guys think the prediction is, how many games this series is going to go. And then we're going to break down what we liked, what we didn't like from the NBA bubble as a whole. So now, you look at the bubble, and you look at it as a whole, the Mavs were about 500 in the bubble. They were close to it. Obviously, this last game, you can barely even count it against the Phoenix Suns.
Yep.
The biggest problem in the bubble, it's the most obvious, it's the most glaring, it's been the most glaring problem all season long. Can't finish in the clutch. So where does that come into play against a team like the Clippers? And, we've seen them play two really good clutch games now in a row between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Portland Trail Blazers. Even though they lost that Blazers game, they played well in the clutch.
Yep.
So what version of Dallas do you think we're going to get in the NBA playoffs in the clutch?
It's just hard to say, right? Because the experience is clearly on the Clippers side. So, you would expect in tight situations, it's advantage Clippers. And that's not purely because the Mavs have struggled in those situations. It's more of you just trust guys like Kawhi. That's what it comes down to. I trust him in clutch situations probably more than any player in the NBA, including LeBron James. Kawhi just has that in him.
So cool and calm under pressure.
Yeah, and it's been a mixed bag. Obviously, the Rockets won, brutal. That's obvious, but look, they find a way to beat Milwaukee in the clutch. I thought they played excellent down the stretch in that game. The Blazers game is what it is. Dame goes nuts. He gets a crazy lucky bounce, and there's a couple 50-50 calls that don't go your way. You got to get a stop. Didn't get one. That's what that comes down to. But scoring-wise, the offense didn't bog down in that one like it did against Houston. Yep. That was the problem against Houston is you were awesome offensively for 44 and a half minutes, and then the ball stopped moving. So I think there's little momentum to playing better in those situations. Small sample size, obviously.
For sure.
I would expect they should be loose in this series.
Yeah.
That's the advantage, right? Like, if you're playing Denver or Houston, you're probably going in thinking it's 50-50. Maybe you get a little tighter. But, dude, you're not expected to win this series.
Yeah.
So you would think they could play a little more loose. Obviously, we'll see when the games actually happen. Yeah. But that's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, so clutch situations, I think defense is an obvious thing that's always been a question mark for this team, and it was continuously in the bubble. That's okay. So two negatives there. What was the most impressive thing? I'll give you my 2 cents and then let you think about it for a minute. But For me, the most impressive thing from the bubble, the thing that stood out, I knew what Luka was going to do, right? I knew Luka was going to come in and give you close to a triple-double every single night. He did that, a 30-point triple-double in the bubble.
Yep.
That's a lot of rhyming words. But the most impressive part to me was Kristaps Porzingis. Yeah. Porzingis averaging 30 points a game, averaging 10 rebounds. I think he's got to be better defensively, blocking shots for sure. He got burned by Damian Lillard. But if we get that version of Porzingis in the NBA playoffs, because he's never been there before. Never had a chance to be there with the New York Knicks. But now he gets that chance. If we get that version, that's amazing. So I think that was who I was most impressed by and what impressed me the most about the Mavs.
I agree with you. I'm going to say KP because not only did he take that next step, you're looking at a guy, if he carries this momentum into this type of play into next year, this is a top 10 player in the NBA. Mm-hmm. You got Luka, who's a top 5 guy. If KP, he probably won't average 30 over a season, but he can be a 25 and 10 guy. There's no doubt about that. So, again, smallish sample size, but you can tell the swagger and confidence is back to peak KP, if not beyond whatever that highest level was pre-knee injury. That's huge. That's big for the Mavs, not only for this playoff series, but long term, which, we don't always like thinking that. We're focused on the here and now, but at the end of the day, it's about the future in a lot of ways as well. So I think KP taking that next step in his development and really, in a lot of ways, becoming a superstar has been the most impressive thing.
You're also getting a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old in the NBA playoffs. And that is invaluable experience. So I'm super happy with that. Another guy who impressed me and stood out and I think could be an X factor in this series, especially defensively, is Dorian Finney-Smith. We already talked about him, but man, offensively, he was great too in the bubble. 13.5 points per game, shot 40.5% from the line, or from beyond the three-point arc, and averaged 9 rebounds.
And that 40.5, like that's shot up too, because the first 2 or 3 games did not shoot the ball well, but obviously Milwaukee, he was awesome in that game.
Amazing.
Like really had a huge game, shot the ball better. He's got, again, a second factor in this series after KP is he's got to knock down the open shots. Like him, Curry, Hardaway, they got to be 40% guys in this series from 3, because the Clippers are going to put all their interest into KP and Luka defensively. So those guys, what are they there for? They're to knock down open shots. That's their job. So
100%. So we're getting near the end of the podcast here. Quick notes on the Phoenix Suns Dallas Mavericks game as we record this. Mavs are down 100 to 127 with about 45 seconds left, which means the Suns go 8-0 in the bubble.
Good for them, man.
They are in, but they're not in the NBA play-in tournament, and here's why. The Memphis Grizzlies just beat the Milwaukee Bucks. So that means, even though the Phoenix Suns won today, the Portland Trailblazers have to lose to the Brooklyn Nets tonight for Phoenix to even get in the play-in tournament. And it's frustrating because at this point, Phoenix is America's team, and now everybody doesn't have to hate the Mavericks for actually not beating them, or for beating them. But they're not in the play-in tournament, so that's a heartbreaker. I'll get you the box score real fast because we are recording at the very end of this game, so let's run down this list real quick. Leading scorer of the night, Boban Marjanovic, 18 points per game, 19 rebounds, 3 assists. Luka Doncic in 13 minutes, Harrison Graham, 18 points and 5 rebounds, 7 of 7 from the line, as you said. Justin Jackson, we're on Justin Jackson Island here.
He's back, baby.
He's back, 13 points, 2 rebounds, 5 of 10. He made a few layups. He even dunked the ball today, which was like his 3rd dunk ever. Seth Curry, 8 points. Tim Hardaway Jr., 8 points, both in 20 minutes. Dorian Finney-Smith in 11 minutes did not score. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, 6 points. He knocked down a mid-range jumper and had a couple nice drives, some good defense as always. DeLon Wright, Antonius Cleveland, Josh Reeves all had 4 points, and Maxi Kleber 3 points in 11 minutes. That's the Phoenix Suns Mavs game that doesn't matter. Harrison, any final thoughts?
Real quick, just thoughts on the whole 8-9 thing. This is no disrespect to Morant and the boys in Memphis because they've had a great season. If the season wasn't interrupted, they would have been the 8th seed. I have no doubts about that. But with Jaren Jackson getting injured, and they're 2-6 now in the bubble, and one of those games is against Milwaukee, who's totally checked out until the playoffs. Like, God, Phoenix Portland is what we all wanted, man.
We all want it so bad.
Like Phoenix goes 8-0. The game just goes final here, 128-102 over the Mavs in a meaningless game for Dallas. But they go 8-0. Booker's been awesome.
Bubble MVP.
Lillard's been awesome for Portland.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted, man. Like, kudos to Memphis. Had a good season. Played better than any of us thought, but they're locked in. They're in. So it's just a matter of if they're the 8 or the 9 seed. And just to clarify for those of you listening who do not know, as we get a little bit away from the Mavs here as we wrap this up, the 8-9 thing, if you're the 9 seed, you have to beat the 8 seed twice. That's how you get that number 8 seed, whereas the 8 seed gets 2 cracks to win 1 game. So if Portland wins tonight, they'll just have to beat Memphis once. If they lose, then Memphis gets 2 cracks at Phoenix, correct?
Correct.
So
and
that's the scenario. So
super interesting. Well, that's all we got. So if you are a part of, and we call it, Harrison, if you haven't noticed, we're calling this group that stays till the final minute of the podcast the End of the Pod Squad. Ooh. So if you're a part of the End of the Pod Squad, you know what to do. Scroll down to the comment section, type #GoMavs, make your predictions for that Clippers-Mavs game, and we'll see you next time. Harrison, say bye to the folks.
All right, guys, appreciate you. Subscribe to Jimmy's channel, All Things Mavs. He's got a video playoff preview, whatever you want to call it, coming up soon. So turn on notifications, all that good stuff. Jimmy, appreciate you having me.
Thank you guys for listening. As always, go Mavs, baby.